Shout out to Khalil Tyas for this awesome Net Alliance fan art. If you have any fan art to send to me, make sure to send it to me on Twitter or Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thanks again, Khalil. What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm Net Alliance. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be tackling a subject that I've gotten asked so many different times throughout just the last couple years that I feel like it's just time to answer. So I'm going to give my thoughts, and then I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to make your own video explaining your thoughts and then tag me on the Net Alliance Discord. There'll be a link to that in the description below. This video is going to be... Got a text, hold on one second. Okay, anyways, so this big question that I've been asked that I want to hear you guys' thoughts on pretty much comes down to, what is the biggest mistake Lucasfilm and Disney have done so far? Out of all the stuff that we've seen, you can consider stuff in The Force Awakens, you can consider stuff in The Last Jedi. There's probably a bunch of stuff you could probably point out in The Last Jedi that you wouldn't like. The question is, what is the biggest mistake they have done so far? Now, before I get to my biggest mistake, I'm going to pick some smaller ones that I think most people will probably pick out. The first one being the fact that The Last Jedi was a letdown. It was not what it was supposed to be. They let Rian Johnson, who is a talented director and should be respected on the merit of being a director, free range to the Star Wars license, and unfortunately that didn't end up as well as it could have been. I don't think The Last Jedi is the worst film to ever exist, but it is a letdown compared to the things we could have saw. Now, there are a lot of things in that film we could complain about, but I don't really know if I want to go too deep into that. I guess if I'm going to kind of touch on it, I might as well say a few things. First off, the mistreatment of Luke, the death of Snoke, completely unneeded, and I guess if you want to complain about Rose, you can complain about Rose. Bunch of other stuff, but that's just kind of like gracing the surface there. On the Force Awakens side, Rey being a Mary Sue, a lot of open-ended questions that didn't really get resolved in The Last Jedi, and they could have been resolved, but they just kind of were meh answers, and I think that was another problem people had. But I guess you could say Rogue One was kind of a letdown. The Han Solo film, which I thought was a fun little adventure through the Star Wars universe, little tiny escapade on the side of the main saga. I thought it was pretty good. A lot of other people didn't like it. I thought it was fun, you know, and that's what I look for in my movies. I aim to be entertained. A lot of other people have more that they aim for in their movies, but I was entertained by the Solo movie. So I thought it was okay, but there were a lot of issues with it, and I understand that. But with all that stuff laid out, I want to hear what's the biggest mistake that Lucasfilm and Disney have done so far with the franchise of Star Wars. I want to hear what you guys think. Now, with that said, let me get to my thoughts on the biggest mistake that they have done so far. So pretty much the very biggest, most idiotic mistake Disney has done, I should say Disney, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, have done with the Star Wars license is announce and create this new trilogy without having a story. You have to remember, when you're setting out to make a trilogy, and you know you're making a trilogy, you're not just making one film that did pretty good, and then you're going to make another one, and then another one, because the movies did pretty good. You're making a trilogy. You have these movies planned out, but you don't have a story to connect all three of them. That is the biggest mistake going into the sequel trilogy. The biggest mistake. The idea that what they did was they made The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams wrote pretty much his script, and then he had ideas for the future, but then they pretty much gave all the creative say to another director who has a completely different outlook on these characters and events, and decides to do something completely different that makes the story feel less. It makes the story feel kind of weak, and unfortunately that's something that we're feeling with The Last Jedi. Now, I do think that J.J. Abrams for episode 9 is going to come back around and fix this, but if there's one mistake that Disney and Lucasfilm are making, it was the idea of making this trilogy without actually having the story kind of planned out. You know, they had what they thought they wanted, and they gave creative freedom to directors they thought could deliver, and unfortunately they made a story that doesn't feel cohesive. I mean, look at the original trilogy. That overall is a very cohesive story. Look at the prequels. You know, you can consider episode 1 kind of not as connected to the second and the third one, but overall, they're very cohesive with their storytelling. You know, they have a narrative. George Lucas knew what he kind of wanted to get at, and so he followed that. This trilogy, this sequel trilogy, unfortunately, it doesn't have that outline, you know, or at least it doesn't seem like it has that outline. I actually just read an article recently that said that Disney legit didn't have plans for episode 8. You know, now the writers had ideas, but what they did was when they hired Rian Johnson was like, hey, Rian Johnson, here's our ideas. And he looked at him and was like, well, I don't like these ideas. I'll make my own. And that's pretty much what happened. And unfortunately, when you have two different creators working on a story in a way, you could say JJ would be the one creator and Ryan would be the second creator. When you have two different creators working on a story, one creator starts it, the second creator puts something in the middle, and then that first creator comes back and ends it, there's going to be some miscommunication in between there. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that factor into the fallout after The Last Jedi. It's because there's two different pilots steering the ship. Yeah, that was kind of like a Star Wars reference, so there you go. So I finally answered that question. I have been asked that so many times over the last few years since The Force Awakens was released. Disney and Lucasfilm's biggest problem was making this story without having someone there to kind of make sure all the story was cohesive. And when you bring in a bunch of different creators, unfortunately, the story can become skewed, and that's what we have from The Last Jedi. And that's why the Star Wars IP is such a mess right now, and people don't know how to feel about it. You know, you have longtime fans who are now turned off from the franchise because of The Last Jedi. Now, like I said in the beginning, Episode 9 will come back around, and it will fix many of the mistakes made in The Last Jedi, and I do have hope for JJ, but this is pretty much like the last straw type of thing. Like, they gotta figure it out or they're gonna lose it. Like, Episode 9 is going to be the real determining factor if people stay with Star Wars or if they leave it. So, Disney, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, JJ, it's up to you guys. Make it happen. But that's it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Once again, let me know what you guys think. What is the biggest mistake that Lucasfilm and Disney has made so far? Was it Kathleen Kennedy still being the emperor over the Star Wars license and stuff? Was it Rian Johnson being hired as director? Was it the fact that there's no Jar Jar yet, you know? What is your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and notifications for more videos. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.